Hello and welcome back to my channel, All the Stories. Today I will be doing my top 10 books of the year video. I am so excited to be filming this. I have a lot of great books to talk about. I mean, I would assume they're great books because they're my favorite books of the year, so hopefully they're great books. I don't care. So the year 2020 was a lot. I ended up getting less reading done than I did in 2019. But I still ended up getting a lot of reading done. I finished 121 books in 2020. So I'm just going to talk about my 10 favorite books out of those 121 books that I did finish. So I'm going to start from number 10 and work my way up to number 1. So these are, of course, books that I read in 2020. That does not necessarily mean that they debuted or came out in 2020. These are just books that I read. So some of them came out last year, some of them came out before then. So yeah, let's just hop into all the books. And at number 10, we have Little Fires Everywhere by Celeste Ng. This book was so good and it's very hyped. And this year, in 2020, or last year in 2020, they came out with a TDB adaptation for this book. So I finally decided to pick it up because I wanted to watch it or read it before I watched it. And I'm so glad I did because this book was so good. I was pleasantly surprised because I'm not a big fan of literary fiction. I don't read a lot of literary fiction. If I do read something other than fantasy, it's usually romance, a contemporary romance. So literary fiction is not something that I reach for often or at all mostly. I did read more this year than I've ever read before, so that's something, but I'm so glad I didn't let that stop me from picking this book up because it was so good. I loved it so much. I loved the plot and I loved the characters. You had likable characters, you had unlikable characters, and it was like just a good storyline going on. And I also enjoyed the TV adaptation. So I do highly recommend Little Fires Everywhere. It follows this neighborhood called Shaker Heights, which is like this idyllic neighborhood, and it is kind of shaken up when Mia and Pearl move into town. Mia and Pearl are black and they move into Shaker Heights, which is predominantly white neighborhood. And Mia and Pearl move into a house. They rent this house that is owned by the Richardson family. And Elena Richardson, who is the mother of this family, takes an interest in Mia and Pearl and really just starts to dig into their life and their backstory because she wants to know everything about them, and she's just one of those women. Pearl also is around the same age as the Richardson children, so she starts to befriend them, and it's just a good story. Like the backstory and then the present day storyline all kind of mixed together, and it's just a great story. At number 9, I have The 100,000 Kingdoms by N.K. Jemisin. This is my first ever N.K. Jemisin book, and I'm so glad I finally picked up a book by her because she is so beloved and she's won a Hugo Award for like almost all her books, and everyone always raves about mostly her 5th season. What's it called? Yeah, that's right. Her 5th season, all of her books are right here. But mostly her 5th season books are the ones I hear people talking about. But this is her series before she wrote the 5th season, so I wanted to start with this one. And I can't believe that it took me so long to pick up an N.K. Jemisin book because this book was amazing. It was a book that follows like this human girl, and in this world there are gods, and she kind of gets sucked into this political world because her mom is a member of the royal family. So after her mother dies, she kind of gets sucked into the world of the royal family, and she is also sucked into this like intrigue between the humans and the gods, and she ends up having some kind of romance with the god of night, and it was so good. I highly recommend this if you like adult fantasy. So at number 8, I have Chain of Gold by Cassandra Clare. This was her most recent Shadowhunters World book, and it is the start of a new series, which series is this? The Last Hour series, which follows the children of the Infernal Devices series. The Infernal Devices is my favorite Shadowhunters series, and the Last Hours looks like it might be giving the Infernal Devices a run for its money because I really enjoyed this first book. It was amazing, and I can't wait for the second book, Chain of Iron, to come out. I want to say this takes place in like the early 1900s, and it follows our main character Cordelia, who is half Persian, and she has moved to London, and she is trying to clear her father's name because her father is accused of a horrible crime, and she befriends the children of the London Institute. But at the same time, this horrible plague is kind of breaking out and affecting Shadowhunters, and that's ironic considering what happened in 2020. So, anyways, it was a really good book. I can't wait for the second book. I love Cordelia. She has become one of my favorite Shadowhunter characters in the entirety of all of the series, and I can't wait to see more about her story with her and James, because I can't wait to see what goes on with that, because how this book ends between her and James, it's just it's like one of my favorite tropes. I love it. Okay, so when I was picking out my books for the top 10, I was pretty certain about which books I wanted in my top 10, but like books 4 through 7 were very hard to place. Like I was pretty solid in my top 3, and then like the bottom 3 were pretty solid, but like books 4 through 7 were very hard. They were all very, very close together. It was hard to put them in a specific order, but I think I'm going to stick to the order I have them in now, but I just wanted to say that these were very close, so they're kind of almost like a little interchangeable. Not interchangeable, but like depending on the day, these rankings might shift. But as of right now, this is what I'm ranking these. So at number 7, we have The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab. This was the absolute last book that I finished in 2020. I finished this right before midnight. It was the last thing I read, and I loved this book so much. V.E. Schwab never, I was about to say she never disappoints, but okay, I have one series by her I don't like, but in general, V.E. Schwab never disappoints, and I was really excited about this book, and it did not let me down. I saw a lot of hype. The hype was well worth it. I did see a lot of people, like, if you either really liked it or really hated it, and I'm glad that I was one of the ones who really liked it, because I was hoping I was going to like it, and this book was everything. I really loved it. It wasn't very, like, I was actually wasn't very plot heavy. It's more like, it's definitely a character driven story. It is a lot of things going on because it spans the life of Addie LaRue, and Addie LaRue is a girl who has been alive for 300 years. So it is a lot of things that you see in a lot of different scenes and a lot of different characters that you meet throughout her life. But it's very character driven because obviously you're following the life of Addie LaRue. So this book is a dual timeline, kind of, sort of. It takes place in, I was going to say present day, but the present day storyline is in 2014, and the past storyline spans like the 300 years since Addie was born up until 2014. So you're following her in 2014 as she meets this boy named Henry, and Addie LaRue she made a deal with, I want to say the devil. We're not exactly sure if he's the devil, but he's like a god, a dark god. And she wanted to essentially see the world, and she didn't want to be held down. So her wish, he kind of twisted it. She can live forever. However, no one she meets remembers her. As soon as they turn their back on her and walk out of the room, they forget her entirely. So Addie LaRue has been living for 300 years with not a single person on the earth who can remember her, until she meets Henry one day in a bookstore that he works at, and he remembers her. She comes back the next day and he remembers who she is. So that's the present day storyline, is Addie and Henry and their kind of love story. And then the past storyline is just following Addie since she made the wish with this dark god and then lives her life for these 300 years. So it was very good. Not exactly what I was expecting. I was expecting something different based on all of the reviews I heard, but I wasn't disappointed. I really enjoyed it. A lot of the critique is that they didn't like the romance, and I didn't love the romance, but I don't think that took away from the story in the way it was done. Yeah. But this was my number 7 book. I really enjoyed it, and I cannot wait to see more from V.E. Schwab because, like I said, her books always hit. So my 6th favorite book of the year was arguably one of my most anticipated releases of the year, and that was Crescent City by Sarah J. Maas. I am a Sarah J. Maas stan. I love all of her books that I've ever read. They are all amazing. Throne of Glass series, the Court of Thorns and Roses series, and now the House of Earth and Blood series. I adored this. The reason it is lower on my list is because it was a 5-star. Every book I have on this list is a 5-star. However, this one did drag a little in the middle. It was like a little slow in the middle, so it wasn't my favorite Sarah J. Maas book. However, it is one of my favorite Sarah J. Maas books, and I really enjoyed this, and this series has the potential to be one of my favorite Sarah J. Maas series, depending on where it goes, because I really love this world and the characters that were introduced in this world, and I cannot wait to see where book 2 goes, because I'm so unsure of where book 2 goes with how this one ends. It can go anywhere. essentially, and I just can't wait to see where it goes. I also can't wait to see who the final love interest is going to be, because you know Sarah J. Maas does not stick with her first love interest. So, and I'm not upset about that in this book because I didn't really love Bryson Hunt. Like I don't feel it. I'm not feeling it. But I do love this book, and I can't wait to see where it goes after this. Number 5 on this list, we have The Poppy War by R. Kwong. I read this for the first time this year, and I understand all the hype this series gets, because this series was amazing. I have never seen war portrayed in such a realistic way in a fantasy novel or in any novel. Like, this book took it there when it came to the war scenes. In most books they tell you these things happen, but this book shows you what happens during war, and it was disturbing but very good. uh I can't with this book. I read this book and I couldn't wait to the second book. I actually already own the second book, but I have been putting off and putting off and putting off reading The Dragon Republic and now The Burning Gods since it came out in December, because I don't want the series to destroy me. I refuse. So I don't know when I'm going to get to The Dragon Republic, because I've just decided that I will not allow this book series to destroy me and ruin my life. So, but honestly, I'm probably definitely going to pick up, The Dragon Republic in 2021. I have just been, stalling because I didn't want to let the series ruin my soul. And at number 4, we have Jade City by Fonda Lee. Again, love the series. I can stop saying that because these are my favorite books of the year, so of course I loved all of them. But love this series, love this book. I read the second book this year, Jade War, as well, but out of the two, this is my favorite, which is why I'm holding this one. But this could really just be the Greenbone Saga, book 1 and 2, as well, like the entirety of the Greenbone Saga so far. I can't wait for Jade Legacy, and I know that book is going to wreck me because I love this series, I love these characters, and I don't want any bad things to happen to them. I want nothing but good things to happen to them, but obviously Miss Fonda Lee is not going to let that happen. So I want one thing out of this series. I want one character to die. And what does she do? She kills every character but that character. And if you read the series, you know who that character is. The cockroach character, that one, the one that just has 10 lives. Like, who is this man? Why is he still around? But anyways, what was I talking about? Jade City. I love this book, The Greenbone Saga. I loved it so much. I loved the characters. Cal Yulo can read this book for Cal Yulo alone, because he's worth it. But anyways, what is this book about? I'm so lost. But anyways, this book follows the Cal family, as they are one of the top 2 families in the city. They kind of run the city, and they are Greenbones, and Greenbones wear jade, and the jade jewelry that they wear gives them powers, and they rule the city along with what's the other family's name? And then they have a rivalry with the other family that rules the city, and it's kind of like a mafia type situation going on between these 2 families in the city, and it is so good. So now we are at my top 3 books of the year. So coming in at number 3, okay, books 2 and 3 were very, very difficult, but I think I am happy with how I ranked them. So coming in at number 3, we have From Blood and Ash by Jennifer Armentrout. I adore this series. I ate the series up. I read the second book, the book 1 and book 2, so fast. So this is kind of, I honestly don't even know which one I like better between this one and Kingdom of Flesh and Fire. So there's this, spot 3 is kind of both of these books in one, because they were so good. I love Poppy and Hawk. They have quickly become one of my favorite book couples. The slow burn was just excellent. The world was excellent, and I just can't wait for book 3, Crown and Gilded Bones, because the way book 2 ended, I need it. So I can't wait. If you haven't seen this book, where have you been? This book has been everywhere. Book Twitter, BookTube, Instagram, all that. Where have you been? Everyone and their mama has read this book this year, and for good reason, because it is that book. So read. It's like and this is a fantasy romance type book. Yeah. And it follows our main character, Poppy, who is the maiden. She's like a religious figure. She is supposed to be pure and chaste, and you can't even look at her face. She has to wear a veil in public and all that jazz. But she honestly doesn't want to be the maiden, never has wanted to be the maiden. She did not choose this for herself. So she kind of just wants to be who she wants to be. And she has a new bodyguard, and his name is Hawk. And anyways, just read this book. I'm trying to explain it, but I don't feel like you really need to know anything about this one, and I honestly didn't, and it was amazing. So, number two, my number one book was a book that I'm pretty sure if you watched any of my videos, you can probably guess what my number one book is, and I didn't think any book would even come close to my number one, and this one came close. I mean, it fell short because my number one is my number one. But this one came close. I was not surprised by how much I like this book because I was expecting to like this book. I don't know, I'm rambling, but my number two book of the year is Legacy. Legendborn by Tracy Deonn. I loved Legendborn, and this was a 2020 debut book by debut author, and it was so good. I loved Bree as a main character. I loved the magic system. The root magic was just so good. I couldn't with this book. So this book follows our main character Bree, whose mother has just died in a car accident. Bree is 16, but she has applied to the early admission program at UNC Chapel Hill before her mother died, and she just found out that she had gotten in, and then her mother dies. So she goes on to UNC Chapel Hill in the early admission program, the early college program, and she finds out that there's this secret society on campus that is doing secret society things. And she finds out that her mother, when her mother used to be at school here in UNC Chapel Hill, may have been involved in this secret society in some kind of way, and that the society may be involved in her mother's death. So she decides to infiltrate the society, and the society is based on Arthurian legend. They are the descendants of King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table. So she decides to join the society to figure out the truth of what's happened with her mother, and it is just so good. It is filled with so much. I love how she will interwound the history of the South along with this Arthurian legend. Is just so good, and I cannot with this book, and I'm so excited for book 2 whenever it is coming out. I hope it comes out in 2021, but I don't think that has been announced officially yet. So I can't wait for book 2, and I just love this book so much. Last, but by far not least, the book that everyone who watches this channel knows was going to be on this list, and that it was going to be number 1 on this list. And that book is The Rage of Dragons by Evan Winter, because duh. It's The Rage of Dragons by Evan Winter, and I talk about this book constantly because it deserves to be constantly talked about because it is amazing. I'm not going to give you a synopsis because I've given you a synopsis for this book in literally like every video I've done since June, so it is what it is. But I love this book. I can't say anything else about it that hasn't already been said on my channel and other channels, not just me. It's not just me, a lot of people like this book, so The Rage of Dragons is by far my favorite read of 2020, and that's that. So thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed. Let me know what your favorite book of 2020 was. Let me know if you had any of the same favorites that I did, or what you thought about some of the books that I read. So thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video. Bye! Ooh. Ooh. Hate it here.